Hi, it's Mary Alice back with you with part two about self-esteem, well, our discussion on it. And I feel like I should have a director's board going, cut, because this is the fourth time I'm doing this. It is such a deep conversation and information, a lot of stuff to understand that the other videos were like way too long. So I'll divide it. I will share some things here and I'll do one more, okay? Because it is a very important thing to understand that we have a self, right? We talk about ourself. We have a self image, right? But do you understand that we have not only our self, small s, but we have a self with a capital S. And you might have heard the term, some people call it higher self. And it's that understanding that we are connected to something bigger, greater, brighter, beautiful. You could say you're connected to the divine, you're connected to God, you're connected to the greater force of life, you're connected, whatever words you want to put to it, it doesn't matter. But being the humans that we are, we do hold within us that spiritual DNA, so to speak. And I'll talk about that in a little while. But right now I want to talk about, what do you think self-image is? How can we break it down? And did you know that self-image, I think I shared it in that last video, is really kind of the foundation for self-esteem and self-worth that contributes to self-confidence. And like a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right? So the same within us, like if we don't have a very strong self-image and we lack a proper sense of self-love, that's kind of a weak chain within us. And when that happens, we want to strengthen that weak link with different ways of coping or different ways of presenting ourselves in an image that might really not be authentic. So self-image starts when we're very, very young, okay? Hang on with me. Listen, this is important. Self-image starts when we're very young, okay? We begin this point of autonomy around age 2 when we realize, oh, I can say no. No, I don't want the green bean. No, I don't want that toy. No, no, no. You know, we make it, it's like becomes, you know, every parent's nightmare. But it's a part of growth, and it's very important that children experience that they learn that they're separate from their parents, and they also have a voice and they have a choice. Okay, so we begin this autonomy, this separateness in the beginning about age 2. But again, depending on your environment, depending on the personality that you came in the world with and what you experience, we begin to develop a sense of, well, I know I'm in this tribe called family. I mean, it's not a conscious thought, but it's like this tribe called family, and I have parents who take care of me, and they kiss my boo-boos, they come when I cry, they feed me good meals, they play with me, they guide me, they protect me. And that child begins to build a sense of trust with their caregivers. They begin to develop a sense of a little more autonomy about themselves. And they begin to realize that their world is a little bigger than themselves, because now they're bumping up against maybe siblings who want to take their toys away from them, or they want to take their siblings' toys away from them. You know, either way, it's like they're starting experiencing life. And it just goes on from there. And anywhere between when you're in the womb and about age 7, we are in basically the theta brainwave mode. It's a slower kind of, you know, kids are imaginative and creative, and they play and they're dreamy and they're energetic and all that. It's a little bit slower brainwave activity. So it's the hypnotic brainwave, okay? So everything goes inside us, everything. Every experience, every tone of voice, every attitude, grandparents, loved ones, aunts, uncles, teachers, people around us, we experience them all in a certain way, and it all goes inside us. And it's there swimming around. And we begin to develop these snapshots. Now let's go back to about, we're talking about self, the self with a small s and the self with a capital S. And an image is what? A picture or a painting. It's an image we can see either in your mind or an actual picture or a painting. All right, it's an image of something. So we develop these snapshots, these images of our life experiences, and they become embedded in us. And that includes emotional snapshots. It's not just memories, because what we know about memories is over time, they get foggy, they change. We will exaggerate a part of it or not, or we'll ignore it all. So memories are unique, and it's something that you can look up and read about, because it's not always what we think a memory is. But emotional memories, we have those snapshots of how someone treated us or how we felt, or, you're from a loving family and you have great memories and you have a lot of nostalgia and sentiment and you love your family and your siblings and you had great vacations and times together and holidays, and it's a lot of good stuff. Not that there wasn't difficult times, but see, when you come from a family of such intense love and guidance and maturity, the negative times are they don't play such a big role, because the good outweighs the bad, right? As we say. So let's say, like many of us, we're in a home that's not so great. There's neglect, perhaps. Perhaps one of your parents is addicted or an alcoholic, or perhaps suffering mental illness, or downright abusive in one form or another. And we experience that. So talk about snapshots, right? Images. We get those emotional snapshots that get embedded in us, which later on become triggers, which I talk about the inner child work in one of my videos under live. You can check that out. So we have the snapshot of feelings, and we're kind of embedded with this moment in time of an emotion and feelings, and memories are almost, well, I don't want to say they're secondary, but oftentimes they're kind of secondary, because it's the emotion that gets triggered in us, right? And we can react to something or overreact to something that really was like so innocent and benign, and all of a sudden we're going, why did I act that way? What happened? We have to figure out what triggered us. Usually it's that point, and I talk about it in that one video to go in depth. So we have these compilations of images within us of who we are. And a lot of it between age 0 and 7 is embedded in us, okay? So depending on your environment, depending on what we are programmed to just accept. And we are programmed. And I don't mean that necessarily in a horrible way, but we are programmed. Like whatever your family's religion was, you had to take it on. Whatever rules or policies they had in the home, you had to take it on. You had to listen. You had to abide by it. Whatever your teachers, the rules at school, all of that, we had to take on. And in so doing, and if there's abuse going on or inappropriateness or weird things that we have to respond to, and we don't know how as children, we begin to cope. We have to cope with these times of craziness for us. Children in these types of homes or situations, they don't have an adult around them protecting them and saying, I'm going to take care of you. It's not your fault. Don't worry. You're going to be okay. You'll feel safe. You'll be protected. No, we're left to our own devices. And with our little childlike minds, we begin to tell ourselves stories. Not always conscious. We have two minds. We have a conscious mind and an unconscious/subconscious mind. And I'm going to talk about that probably in at the finishing video of this. So, but we take on all this stuff and we have to make sense of it, right? So you've heard me talk about the primitive part of the brain. Right back here, the lizard brain, all its function is to keep you safe, survival, keep you in your comfort zone. It doesn't think, it doesn't analyze, it doesn't self-reflect. That's all in the frontal and prefrontal cortex of the brain, which isn't fully developed until we're in our mid-20s. So that part of the brain, the primitive part of the brain, takes over. So, okay, we're going to cope with this. And you find yourself coping, right? So you develop, I talked about this too in another video. Look under live and you'll find, read the caption and you'll find it. But how we cope with these things that are going on in our life and how do we survive it, no matter what it is for you. And sometimes there's micro traumas that become really big in a child's mind. So however we are coping, we develop these coping mechanisms and we develop a thought process of, well, I must not be lovable. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't know where I belong in this family. I'm not likable. And then we begin, depending on your personality, I'm going to give some scenarios here, so it's just going to be generalities. But depending on one kid's personality, they might become the bully. They over-respond with their passionate, outgoing sense of personality and nature, and it pushes over the line to, I'm going to be, they rebel, they get angry, they have anger issues, they hate authority, and they grow up with this persona and self-image. They think that's them, but that only came out of them because of how they had to cope. Then you have another kid, maybe in their home, it was very authoritarian, it was very strict, and you had to get straight A's, and the only way your parents will love you if you do your best and you're a perfect kid. So you strive for those straight A's. You strive to be that perfect kid. And then you grow up to be an adult, to be not only an overachiever, but a workaholic. And then another type, depending again on the personality and the environment they're in. They might become the shrinking violet, very quiet. They might be the one to keep the peace, don't rock the boat, be invisible, don't say anything. And they become like a very shy wallflower, thinking, I don't have a say, I don't have a voice. So these are just 3 different scenarios, what can happen. And I know people like this in my life. I've seen people like this, and I was one of them like that. I was the one who had to shrink and be invisible and not speak and, don't rock the boat, keep the peace, make everybody happy, that kind of kid. And didn't always work, but I tried my best because that was the way I had to cope in my household. So as I shared before, I grew up being a great codependent because those are great codependent characteristics. And so that was embedded in me, and I had a self-image of this is how I have to be in order to be liked. Now that wasn't true, but I didn't know that, right? I had to be this way. This is the way I had to cope in my home, and so it got embedded in me, and I grew up with these tendencies and characteristics, which for the most part are far behind me now. But that's how I had to learn about myself. This is called the default mode of living. We're in this default mode of how we were programmed, how our coping mechanisms programmed us in certain ways, depending on your personality and your environment. Gets embedded, we grow up and we think, oh, that's just who I am. And a lot of people continually live in this default mode, never realizing that's not just who you are. We weren't born to be hurt or codependents or addicted. Some people become addicted to numb the pain. They don't even know who they are. They have a terrible self-image. They feel embarrassed and ashamed. They don't know how to be without drugs or alcohol in their system. And even that produces a false image. But see, it gets so embedded in them to be that way. They think that's what's normal and that's what they have to do. There are all these ways that we cope. And it is like a growth that surrounds our authentic self and our true personalities. It just kind of surrounds and strangles it a little bit here and there, pushes us to the limit in one way or another. And we need to extract ourselves from it. We need to understand that that's not just who we really are. And to begin to do that, to start connecting yourself with your authentic self and creating a self-image that you want to have, that feels real to you, is to do it one day at a time and with self-reflection. And sometimes we need therapy or counseling to kind of work through some things, and people to help guide us in a way that they're more objective, because we're so subjective with our own inner pain. And that's helpful, and we need that. I know that was tremendous in my life at a period of time in my life when I had therapy many, many years ago, but it really set me on the right path. I could suddenly see clearly, as clear as I could, back then, and it made sense to me why I was the way I was, or why I thought what I thought. And you begin to stop blaming people, places, and things for your circumstances, and you begin to go, oh, it's because I brought that about because of I only thought I deserved this much or didn't deserve anything. Because self-image is wrapped up in self-love. And if you remember, my talk on that was about honoring yourself, respecting yourself, taking good care of yourself, just like you would a loved one or a child even. Making sure you take good care of yourself in all areas of your life. We know about health. We know it's good to get movement in your life, whether you run or jog or go to the gym. Just get that momentum going and that movement, and maybe lifting some weights and whatever it is that we need to do to keep our bodies strong and healthy. And hydration. Hydrating is very important, especially for the brain throughout the day. And sleep is so important. Being social is so important. There's all these balances we have to make in our life, the best of our ability. Not always perfect, but we need to balance our life and our work, home life as well. And that's about self-love. When we love ourselves, our self-image begins to grow in a way that is healthy and strong, and you can smile about yourself, you can love yourself. There's nothing to be embarrassed about or ashamed of. We're not afraid to be vulnerable with the right people we trust. We can open up. And we're not afraid of our own successes and our power and our talents and abilities. And I think a lot of people, and I can speak for myself, couldn't connect with the fact that I was smart enough. I was bright enough. I do know enough. I don't know everything. And to accept that, yes, I can be helpful. I can be of service. I can speak. I can share. I can write a book. I did write a book. I have spoken to many people. I've led support groups. All this stuff, these accomplishments that we all have, and I know you do too, but we tend to go, no, that was nothing. No, that was nothing. It's like a compliment. Someone gives you, no. But we need to understand that it's good to understand that we have these abilities and talents. It's not about, oh, I'm cool and I'm smarter than you and I am all that. That's not what that is. It's just acknowledging your strengths along with your weaknesses that we are so aware of. Don't we we're just always down on ourselves. We're always judging ourselves. And being self-reflective isn't about judgment. It's about compassion. Judging doesn't help a thing. People really hurting people who don't have a strong self-image, self-identity. They begin to develop an image that's really not authentic to them, but they think they have to. It's a way of coping. So they think they'll be too cool for school, or, I don't know. And I'm not judging. It's not about a judge thing, but sometimes I wonder about people who just tattoo themselves head to toe, or plastic surgery out. I mean, just galore everywhere, or they don't even look human anymore. And it's like they think just one more procedure, just one more facelift, just one more lip injection, just one more tattoo, just one more piercing, like that one more thing is going to make them whole, not realizing that their self with a capital S is already whole within them. It's combining our humanity with our spirituality. Because being human is not an easy task, as we all know, right? And it does take support. It does take friends and family to get through life sometimes. Not as crutches, but just support. I know that you're there for your friends. I'm there for mine and my family. If they need a listening ear, of course. Or celebrate with them and celebrate their success. All of that is just that social part, the aspect of our life, of being social with people. We have to be social for mental health, basically, as long as you're socializing with the right people. And knowing that our self-image starts when we're very, very, very young, even right the second we're born. You don't know it, but everything's going in. You're feeling the snuggles and the kisses and the hugs from your parents and the excitement that you're there, and that little tiny brain is taking in all this information around them, the feelings they've never felt before. Breathing, never did it before, and now they're breathing. And they have these arms that wiggle all over the place, where inside the womb, you're just all cuddled up and tight. There's a lot to learn. Believe it or not, an infant is overwhelmed with so many things and so much stimuli in their little life right at the get-go. And all that goes in. And if they're a child where they're wired and they're a little more needy, they're more sensitive, they're the ones that might cry more, they're more sensitive to light or noise. Some kids love being stimulated by that, and they enjoy the noise and the lights and the music or whatever. It depends on their little personality, but it all goes in. So all of us have all that within us to this day. We do. So why am I saying all this? Because our self-image is, like I said, it's a compilation of many things. It's snapshots of memories, of feelings, of emotions that are well deep within our subconscious. And the subconscious is what bubbles up every once in a while, especially when we're feeling vulnerable or triggered or angry or hungry, right? It's that we get ultra sensitive and the truth comes out, so to speak. And it's okay to be self-reflective. It's okay to look at ourselves and go, am I loving myself through this? Was I loving that other person? Like coming home after work and just kind of self-reflect, boy, I wonder if that conversation with my coworker went really well. I think it did. I think it went really well. We were able to communicate well, even though it got tense, but we got through it and we were able to solve that problem. It's just that moment of self-reflection. Because then we can see ourselves and we can get a snapshot, kind of an objective view of ourselves. And listen to people when they compliment you. They're telling you something about yourself. When they say, thank you so much, you were so thoughtful, I really appreciate that you brought that meal over, you took the time, you were so generous, I appreciate it, or thank you for that birthday gift, or thank you for taking that shift for me, you are so wonderful and I appreciate it and I'll make it up to you. And a lot of times I go, oh no, whatever, they're just being nice. But if we listen, it's kind of a reflection and we can get a snapshot of who we are through their eyes. And sometimes there's criticism, maybe constructive criticism, maybe not so nice criticism, but there's always an ounce of truth in it that we can maybe look at and go, yeah, you're right. I kind of just blew it there. I really had an attitude with you and I didn't need to, that kind of thing. These snapshots, let's replace the negative ones with more positive ones. And I'll continue this with the third one, with how we do that. I'll also talk about unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. That's a mouthful, but it has a lot to do with what I just talked about, what gets embedded in us in these snapshots of either memories or emotional snapshots, good, bad, or otherwise, right? They're in us. And we can connect to them, and we don't have to let the negative ones always be so triggered. I did a whole video on that, about reverse engineering triggers. Now, I'm not talking about serious PTSD kind of things, which needs help and needs professional help. I'm just talking about our kind of everyday little bit of triggers that can happen within us that we can minimize, if not get rid of. So you can check that video out, because I think it's really helpful, and I know it helped me, and it still does. I mean, we're never going to ever be over every single trigger, but at least we can get an understanding, so we're like, oh, okay, I get it now. I know where that's coming from. I can nip that in the bud, that kind of thing. So this is why I tell you you're an amazing human being and you're a miracle on this planet, and you matter, because you do and you are. Seriously. Put that in that snapshot of yours. Put that in your photo album book of emotions because you are that special. And your self-image can be the best it can be in your life of how you want it to be without being inauthentic. So take care until the next one. I hope to do it in a couple days for you, and I'll post it. Take care. Bye for now.